We often talk about the dangers gun-free zones present. Ever since Joe Biden introduced the Gun-Free School Zones Act as part of the Crime Control Act in 1990, we've noticed a sharp increase in school killings. Now, the cause of school killings is obvious. Good people who would otherwise be inclined to have a gun in their possession on school campuses are now no longer allowed to do so. As we watch innocent children and teachers die because a small portion of our society has decided that although our money in banks should be protected by armed security, our children and teachers should not. So we wonder how some people can continue to support these dangerous policies. We've heard every excuse in the book, from we don't want the children to feel like they're in prison when we talk about armed security or bars on the windows and doors. And we also hear the gaslighting coming from the political left when they say, you want to force all the teachers to carry a gun. Well, this rhetoric was created to make it appear that those who want armed security for our children would be willing to force teachers to carry a gun against their will. This could not be further from the truth. What many people really would like is the ability for those teachers who would be inclined to carry a gun to be allowed to do so while including special armed security at all entrances of school buildings. But the political left, being led by the anti-gun lobby on this topic, has built every possible roadblock in this area. Why in the world would they defy a solution to the problem of school killings even after seeing time and time again that the one thing that stops a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun? Heck, they even complain when it takes police too long to get to the crime scene, making our argument for us. The reason they won't allow security for our children and teachers is to protect their own political position on the use and carry of firearms by private citizens. Now remember, they've made the elimination of American firearms their mission in life. They will defend that position, even if it means children will die as a direct result. And they do. Turning any facility into a gun-free zone is destructive in nature and comes from a politically motivated agenda, and the result is often the death of innocent people. And you know what? They don't care, because the alternative would be admitting that they've been wrong all along. We know that defensive gun uses occur up to 2.5 million times per year in America. Now, this means violent crimes are stopped because good people present a firearm during an attack. And in the vast majority of these defensive gun uses, a shot is never even fired. Just the mere presence of a defensive firearm stops the crime. So imagine how quickly school killings would end if the killer knew that they faced armed victims inside the school. Instead, the anti-gun lobby, including groups like Moms Demand Action, Everytown for Gun Safety, and Giffords, seem to believe that advertising the unarmed defenselessness of everyone in a school by posting gun-free zone signs somehow makes them safer. Or are the signs nothing more than a visual marketing tool used for moral posturing at the expense of young lives? Now, we know the signs attract killers, so why do they continue to post them? Many will argue for armed security in schools because the Gun-Free School Zones Act does allow for schools to appoint security guards. The problem is that the topic has become so toxic through irrational fear and anti-gun rhetoric by the political left that many schools completely reject the idea of firearms on campuses in any capacity simply because they don't want to appear anything but woke in the eyes of their peers. For instance, the Saratoga Springs School Board in Saratoga County, New York, at one point went so far as to remove all armed security from their schools simply to protect their political ideology. But the people spoke up and put the radical left members of the board in their place. Now, this decision by this woke school board came for no apparent reason other than politics, even after years of having an armed security officer with absolutely no incidents. Now, this is just one example of the politically driven ideology putting our children in danger for no good reason. Next comes the question of effectiveness when it comes to armed security versus armed teachers and staff. Now, many will argue that armed security is simply not enough to protect the children. and that security guards would become targets because they typically would be wearing a uniform and be posted at certain locations on campus. Not to mention the possibility of security refusing to act, as many believe was the case of campus deputy Scott Peterson, who was charged with failing to confront the killer at the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas School during his 6-minute attack on February 14, 2018, that left 17 dead. The Florida Sheriff's deputy was ultimately acquitted of felony child neglect and other charges. Now, not only may some security guards be questionable in their willingness to confront an attacker, but they might also become the first target to be attacked. Sarasota County, Florida Sheriff Kurt Hoffman said, "A deputy in uniform has a difficult job in stopping these attacks. These terrorists have strategic advantages in determining the time and place of attacks. They can wait for a deputy to leave the area or pick an undefended location. Even when police or deputies are in the right place at the right time, those in uniform who can be readily identified as guards may as well be holding up a neon sign saying, 'Shoot me first.'" The idea of armed teachers and staff appeals to many because the attacker would never know who their most dangerous victim would be. Plus, teachers would be closest to the children and be able to respond quickly. And by the way, there have never been any deaths or injuries by an active shooter at a school where teachers or staff have been armed. Now, regardless of the hyperbole from the anti-gun crowd, not all teachers and school staff are incapable or unwilling to carry a gun. Many already carry off campus and would be more than willing to do so in school if it means being able to save the lives of the innocent children under their supervision. But it seems the anti-gun lobby will continue fighting to make sure those innocent lives remain vulnerable. Thanks for watching Bullet Points. I'm Dan Wass for Gun Owners Foundation. You can find more Second Amendment content and updates at gunowners.com.